when the polished marble of Salaria Resort's lobby met the steady gaze of a solitary 12-year-old. An electric tension crackled in the air. Imagine the soft hum of climate-controlled corridors, the distant clink of fine china, and a hush that falls like silk when privilege believes itself unchallenged until it encounters dignity. This is where we find Tariq Carter, a poised African-American boy standing at the front desk, his palms folded over an unadorned notebook, the calm intensity in his eyes betraying a history of silent judgment. He has long since learned to wear his armor. In that moment, nothing about his presence should have ruffled the immaculate order of the resort his mother had booked the suite, her credit-stamped executive priority. Yet before the receptionist could even complete his check-in, the resort manager's daughter swept into view, her blonde ponytail flicking, her voice ablade. "You don't belong here." This opening scene is our crucible, a collision of inherited entitlement and quiet resilience. We're invited to lean forward, to feel the contraction in our chest as Camille Whitmore, accustomed to bowing the world to her whims, unleashes a tirade that echoes off the marble pillars. We're not just watching a child being shamed, we're witnessing a microcosm of systemic prejudice, where wealth dictates worth and skin color becomes a litmus test for belonging. Yet even as Camille's laughter rings hollow in the echoing lobby, Tariq's composure never wavers. He stands not out of defiance, but because he knows deep in the marrow of his bones that composure is not capitulation. It is preparation. Preparation for a reckoning no one in that grand hall could imagine. As the camera pans away from the spat of cruel words to the sun-drenched breakfast terrace, where croissants wait like props in an overripe drama, we sense that something seismic is brewing. Camille's tantrum rejecting cucumber water, lecturing waitstaff on truffle oil paints her as royalty gone rogue. Yet it is the arrival of one unexpected figure that turns the tide. The gentle click of heels on tile becomes the soundtrack of justice incarnate. When Amelia Carter steps into view, dressed in a tailored gray power suit, badge holder gleaming like a sword, she commands the room with a single, unyielding sentence: "Take your hand off my son." In that instant, the bubble of entitlement burst, and the scales of power tilt without fanfare, but with absolute authority. This is more than a simple twist. It is a searing examination of who really holds the reins when wealth and race collide. In the next 4,000 words, we will peel back the polished veneer of Salaria Resort, tracing the ripple effects from Wellington Crest hushed classroom, where Tariq first felt the sting of condescension, to the very heart of Carter legacy hotels, where Amelia's resolve will forge a new code of justice. We will meet the characters who thought they could write the rules, watch their worlds unravel, and discover how one mother's quiet courage can shatter the arrogance of a gilded dynasty. Stay with us, because this is only the beginning. The storm clouds of accountability are gathering, and the truth, like water, finds every crack. If you've ever wondered what happens when privilege is tested by integrity, prepare to witness a revelation that will leave you breathless and asking, "What would I do if I were Tariq Carter?" Wellington Crest gleamed like a fortress of privilege, its marble corridors stretching endlessly beneath the hum of climate-controlled vents. Outside, black tinted town cars and imported SUVs idled by wrought iron gates, their engines whispering power and pedigree. Inside, the air smelled faintly of polished wood and expensive cologne, every detail calibrated to signal status. In the front row of Mrs. Welling's literature class, a single boy sat apart from the parade of designer backpacks and leather portfolios: Tariq Carter, a 12-year-old African-American student whose only concession to the school's opulence was a well-worn notebook. His hands lay folded atop its creased cover, his spine straight, his gaze steady and unassuming contrast to the glittering world around him, as if the weight of those marble halls pressed him down, only to build him up in quiet resolve. When Mrs. Welling asked, "Can someone explain the metaphor Atticus Finch uses an asterisk to kill a mockingbird asterisk?" An expectant hush fell over the classroom. In that moment, the wealth and influence that filled Wellington Crest seemed irrelevant. The question was universal, probing the heart of compassion disguised as struggle. Tariq raised his hand with measured calm and, when called upon, spoke in a clear, resonant voice. "He means that people who do nothing but harm innocent creatures or innocent people are like sin, an ugly stain that spreads if not challenged." Even Mrs. Welling, whose silver screen accent carried authority, offered a subtle nod of approval. The room should have exhaled in collective admiration, but before that could happen, a scoffing exhale cut the air like shattered glass. At the back, Camille Whitmore leaned into her designer desk, ponytail swinging as she turned toward her clique. With eyes alight in theatrical disdain, she let loose a voice dripping contempt. "Wow, I didn't know they let the help audit classes now." Her words hung in the air, sharp and uninvited, and while a few students smothered giggles, most shifted uncomfortably, unwilling to challenge Wellington Crest's golden air. Only Tariq remained unmoved. He lowered his gaze, folding his answer into silence, refusing to hand over the satisfaction of seeing him falter. Yet beneath that composed exterior, a familiar ache pressed against his ribs, one born from years of invisible boundaries, of being judged on the color of his skin before the quality of his mind. In Tariq's mind, composure had become both shield and prison. He recalled the countless times a scornful glance felt heavier than any open insult, the way teachers averted their eyes when privilege whispered that it would be easier to ignore him than to defend him. Each micro-assault, Camille's sarcastic, "Are you sure your mom didn't just drop you off?" or her fox curiosity, "Do you live close enough to walk home after school?" left tiny fractures in his dignity. Yet he had trained himself to meet each barb with the same stillness, to let the echo of his own breath steady his heart. To flare up would be to grant power to the prejudice. To remain calm was to deny it. Still, every unchallenged insult layered another burden on his young shoulders. Power in Wellington Crest was inherited, not earned. Camille's father, a luxury hotel magnate, loomed over the school much like the adult world Tariq had yet to fully encounter. Teachers taught softly around her, their corrections cautious, their reprimands gentle. One word out of line and they risked losing favor. Better, they thought, to let Camille's cruelty slide than to provoke a scandal. In the hushed exchanges of the student body, her clique reigned supreme, reinforcing the message that wealth conveyed right to condescend. When she whispered that some rooms were not meant for charity cases, it stung not only because of its cruelty, but because it carried the weight of institutional reinforcement. Far too often, Tariq had seen authority look away when injustice wore a designer label. As the bell rang and classmates gathered their tablets and leather-bound books, Tariq lingered a heartbeat longer, closing his notebook with deliberate calm. Camille swept past him, tossing a final barbed remark over her shoulder. "Try not to get too comfortable, Carter. Not every room is meant for everyone." The laughter trailing in her wake sounded hollow even to her ears, an echo of privilege that seldom meets accountability. But to Tariq, those words were a promise and a challenge. He had learned patience in the face of unseen battlefields, where composure was not capitulation but preparation. In the quiet steadiness of his exit, he carried the conviction that one day, the truth would speak louder than privilege, that the world's mirror would shatter and force everyone to confront what they had long denied. He knew his moment would come, but not through anger or spectacle. It would arrive with the weight of undeniable fact, the authority of an unassailable voice. And as the classroom emptied, the camera of his mind panned forward to the next arena, Salaria Resort, where marble and privilege would meet the unwavering dignity he embodied. With that thought, the scene faded, leaving viewers poised on the precipice of a confrontation more seismic than any classroom duel, reckoning that would reveal who truly belonged and who had only ever assumed they did. Under the vaulted glass skylights of Salaria Resort, the morning sun poured in like liquid gold, illuminating spotless terraces and twisting vines overhead. Wait staff in starched white uniforms moved with reverent precision, aligning silverware and setting fruit parfaits so artfully they seemed sculpted rather than served. The air smelled faintly of freshly brewed coffee and dewy jasmine, punctuated by the soft hiss of misting fountains and secluded alcoves. Guests drifted through the terrace with porcelain cups in hand, their laughter muted by the resort's hushed protocols. Everything here whispered calm, yet beneath the perfect symmetry a storm was gathering. Its first thunderclap not in the sky, but at a single corner table. At that corner sat Camille Whitmore, back ramrod straight, one designer clad, ankle crossed over the other, a silk scarf knotted just so at her throat. A server approached with a tall glass of cucumber-infused water. Camille sniffed and, with the grace of a duchess disposing of a pauper's token, flung it back at him. Glass tumbled across the marble floor in a tinkling protest. The waiter recoiled, fear in his eyes. Next arrived a silver tray bearing warm croissants, flaky, fragrant, freshly baked, but Camille's pale lips curled in disdain as she tapped a single manicured nail. "These croissants are stale," she declared, voice low enough for her personal entourage to hear. "And who uses frozen berries in May?" A second waiter hovered, offering eggs Benedict. She stabbed one forkful, declared it texturally akin to cafeteria slop, then tossed the plate aside. Within minutes, 5 different team members had paraded in and out of her tableau, each attempt to placate her ending in another rebuke. Growth of anxiety rippled through the staff. Some bowed and retreated. Others exchanged terrified glances while Camille reveled in the chaos, eyes bright with entitlement. A flick of her wrist summoned the junior server again. "I said truffle oil on that omelet, not this cheap peppery garbage," she hissed. "Get the head chef, not his assistant. Oh, and housekeeping, fix the hem on my guest robe." It's dragging on the tile like we're in some third-rate spa. At her command, staff scattered like startled birds, whispers trailing behind like smoke from a fire no one dared extinguish. Watch how power corrupts a child, how absolute privilege twists empathy into tyranny, and turns hospitality into a theatrical stage for cruelty. Meanwhile, through the lobby's grand atrium, a solitary figure emerged. Tariq Carter stepped into the sunlit expanse with quiet purpose, navy-collared shirt crisp, hands folded politely before him. No escort, no announcement, just a boy fulfilling the final step of his mother's plan, checking in early to the suite, awaiting him. His footsteps echoed softly, measured, as if each stride carried the weight of unseen histories. For a moment, time slowed, the milling guests paused mid-conversation. Bellhops halted in their polished shoes, and even the fountain's mist seemed to hang suspended. It was the kind of slow-motion entrance reserved for heroes in films. But here, the hero was a 12-year-old boy armed only with a reservation and unshakable dignity. Camille's fork froze midair. Her sunglasses slipped an inch down her nose as she stared, disbelief etched on her features. "It can't be him," she murmured, tone brittle as spun glass. The words escaped her before the gravity of her situation fully registered. In that brief moment, the illusion of her control fractured, leaving a flicker of panic behind the practiced poise. This boy, this quiet anomaly in her perfectly choreographed world, was an inconvenience that refused to vanish. And as his calm composure met her stunned gaze, the tension stretched taut, ready to snap. Without a second thought, Camille abandoned her half-rejected plate and rose in a single fluid motion. The chair scraped against marble with a crack that echoed like a starting gun. She marched through the terrace, hair swinging, eyes aflame, until she burst into the main lobby. Onlookers turned, sensing the charge in the air, something electric, something about to ignite. Latitude of luxury gave way to the narrowing focus of a showdown. Entitled heiress versus unyielding guest. Tariq remained at the front desk, hands folded, offering a polite nod to Monica, the receptionist, as Camille's heels clicked closer. "Excuse me," Camille called, her voice practiced in the art of public shaming, slicing through the murmur of guests like a blade. Monica looked up, startled by the intrusion. Tariq stiffened only slightly, his expression serene. "What exactly is going on here?" Camille demanded, arms akimbo. "Why is this person standing at the front desk like he belongs here? This is a 5-star resort, not a daycare or an outreach program." Her tone was venomous, each word measured to inflict maximum humiliation. A bellhop shifted uneasily, a concierge widened her eyes, and somewhere a smartphone blinked, ready to capture every moment. Whispers rippled across the lobby. Some guests exchanged confused glances. Others leaned in, sensing injustice unfolding. In real time, a few discreet cameras, phones, security clicked into focus. The scene felt charged, as though the resort itself was holding its breath against this backdrop. Tariq's calm strength drew sympathy. Viewers found themselves rooting for him, hearts tightening as Camille's cruelty mounted. She threatened Monica with her father's wrath. "If you check him in, I swear you'll be out of a job before lunch," and relished the fear flickering across the receptionist's face. Yet through it all, Tariq did not shrink or snap. He lowered his voice just once, saying, "My mother booked the suite. I'm here to check in." As she asked, the simplicity of his statement cut through entitlement, like a current lancing through still water. But they didn't know who was coming next. Beyond the marble pillars, beyond the staff's hushed panic and the guest mounting curiosity, an elevator stood poised, doors waiting to part and reveal the force that would shift the balance of power. In their arrogance, Camille and the resort's elite had mistaken entitlement for invincibility. Soon, they would learn that true authority doesn't always arrive in gold-plated envelopes or toddler tantrums. Sometimes it steps off an elevator in a tailored gray suit, badge in hand, and demands justice. When Richard Whitmore stormed into the lobby, his dark navy blazer crinkling at the shoulders, the tension in the air snapped like a sudden gust through still leaves. His authoritative stride carried him straight to the front desk, eyes narrowing, as he assessed the scene, his daughter's flushed face, the rigid posture of the young boy, and the gathering crowd of onlookers whose whispered excitement was masked as polite curiosity. "What is going on here?" he barked, voice echoing off the marble walls. Before Tariq could respond, Richard's broad hand shot out and gripped the boy's arm with a firmness that bordered on violence. Guests seated nearby recoiled in shock. Phones raised in unspoken protest. The receptionist, Monica, instinctively leaned forward, mouth parted as though to intervene, but fear froze her in place. In that charged moment, father's arrogance meeting boy's quiet dignity, it seemed as though no rescue would come, as though the weight of entitlement would finally crush the composure Tariq had so carefully cultivated. The guests bristled, some glancing at each other, unsettled by the sudden display of force. Whispers fluttered like startled birds. Why is he touching that kid? Should we call security? Yet even as the lodge manager's grip tightened, Tariq did not flinch. His gaze remained steady, fixed on Richard's face as if searching for reason where none existed. Monica's eyes flicked between the boy's calm expression and the manager's rigid posture, wrestling with the conflict between her duty to obey and the undeniable injustice unfolding before her. The lobby's grand chandelier trembled with the collective unease, droplets of crystal refracting the tensed glow below. It felt as though time itself had paused, caught between the tremor of Richard's assault and the silent promise that something far greater was about to unfold. Then, from somewhere beyond the polished travertine floors, a subtle hum grew, like the warming pulse of an approaching thunderstorm. The elevator doors glided open with surgical precision, and there she stood, Amelia Carter, the woman whose name was etched in steel on every executive memo of Carter Legacy Hotels. She stepped into the lobby with the calm authority of someone accustomed to wielding power, her heels clicking in crisp succession. Click, clack, click, each step a measured decree against the mounting chaos. The marble underfoot seemed to straighten itself in her presence, as though even the building recognized her status. Guests shifted, some craning their necks for a clearer view, others instinctively straightening their posture, drawn into the gravity of her arrival. In that breathless moment, the lobby's electric tension transmuted into awed silence, as Amelia's gray suit melded seamlessly with the lobby's muted sophistication. The swell of murmured anticipation rose, and then fell like a wave crashing on a silent shore. The crowd's eyes were fixed on her, tracing the arc of her movement from the elevator's threshold to the center of the confrontation. There was no hurried stride, no flurry of emotion. Instead, each of her steps was deliberate, a carefully choreographed assertion of presence that commanded attention without uttering a word. A single security guard at the edge of the space straightened his spine, ready to heed any command that might follow. The atmosphere was electric with expectation, poised at the edge of revelation. In the hushed aftermath of her entrance, Amelia made no grand speech or dramatic flourish. She simply raised her hand, palm outward, toward Richard Whitmore. "Take your hand off my son," she said, her voice steady and cool, a scalpel of justice cutting through the tension. In that one sentence, she dismantled the manager's authority more thoroughly than any public reprimand could. Richard's arm uncurled, his grip loosening as though his bones themselves understood he was in the wrong. He blinked, mouth opening and closing as the admission of guilt and ignorance flickered across his features. The entire lobby seemed to exhale at once, the collective gasp a testament to the power of her silent authority. No one moved, no one spoke, as if her words had carved a new airspace in which entitlement no longer held dominion. Amelia stepped forward, her badge holder poised like a silent verdict. With one smooth motion, she flipped it open to reveal the ebony leather and polished insignia, Amelia Carter, Chief Executive Officer, Carter Legacy Hotels. The revelation landed like thunder, rolling through the lobby in shuddering waves. Phones that had hovered at ready lowered slowly, as though guests feared missing a critical detail. Camille's face drained of color, her previous swagger evaporating into stunned shame. Richard's jaw hung slack, the color gone from his cheeks in hopeless defeat. Amelia turned her gaze to Monica at the front desk, voice measured but sharp, enough to sever any lingering doubt. "Monica, please confirm that the Carter suite has been reserved under my name, and that an early check-in for Tariq Carter was noted in the comments." Monica's fingers trembled across the keyboard, each keystroke amplified by the lobby's sudden hush. The screen blinked and then displayed the truth. Carter Suite, VIP Executive Tier, reserved for Amelia Carter. Notes, early access for Tariq Carter. Words scrolled into view, each letter a nail in the coffin of entitlement. Amelia did not flinch. She turned back to Richard, her eyes narrowing to steel. "You assaulted a registered guest on private property, my own son, in front of dozens of witnesses, staff, and security cameras. You humiliated him based on nothing but assumption and prejudice." The phrasing was crisp, precise, leaving no space for misinterpretation. Behind her, murmurs rippled. "This is unprecedented. I've never seen anything like it." While phones half-raised captured every syllable, viral-style captions flashed across small screens. Asterisk asterisk justice served asterisk 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 privilege exposed asterisk 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 CEO stops racism in its tracks asterisk asterisk. With the room's attention fully hers, Amelia laid out the charges: assault, abuse of authority, and a blatant display of racial bias. She instructed the assistant general manager standing at the fringe of the gathering, effective immediately. Richard Whitmore is relieved of his duties. His access to all hotel systems is revoked. and security will escort him to retrieve his personal belongings before leaving the premises. A formal termination letter and civil complaint will follow. Gasps broke free across the crowd as some guest murmured, "He can't be fired for this, can he?" But Amelia's expression remained unyielding. She signaled to the security detail, whose posture shifted from alert to active. Richard, once the unassailable magnate of Salaria Resort, now looked small and defeated as he was guided away. His daughter, Camille, stood frozen in place, the weight of her complicity crashing down in a single, devastating moment. Phones snapped photos. Voices whispered incredulous praise for the CEO's decisive action, and still, Amelia did not gloat. She looked back at her son, who had watched the proceedings with composed restraint, and offered him a soft nod and unspoken affirmation that dignity, not vengeance, had guided her hand. But this was just the beginning. As Richard was escorted out, shoulders slumped and head bowed, Salaria Resort seemed to shift beneath its own foundations. Word would spread beyond the marble doors, through social media channels and news outlets hungry for a story of power confronted by justice. Within days, training seminars on implicit bias would become mandatory. Policies would be rewritten to ensure equity. Monica would be promoted as a testament to moral courage. Camille's world would shrink, her luxury privileges revoked, her arrogance replaced by introspective silence in a new, humbler classroom. And Tariq Carter, quietly resolute, would emerge not as a victim, but as a symbol that true authority belongs to those who wield it with integrity. In the next episode of this unfolding saga, we will journey behind the scenes at Carter Legacy Hotel's headquarters to uncover the ripple effects of Amelia's decision, boardroom backlash, corporate policy overhauls, and the subtle shifts in power that redefine what it means to lead with conscience. Stay tuned, because in the world of privilege and prejudice, the real transformations happen not in a single confrontation, but in the long aftermath, when justice takes root and change becomes inevitable. As the echoes of marble-shattering authority fade, Tariq Carter stands quietly by the elevator, his reflection framed in the chrome doors. In the hush that follows his mother's decisive intervention, he breathes in slow, deliberate, then exhales with surprising softness. "I didn't want anyone to be ruined," he says, voice barely above a whisper but carrying the weight of every hushed insult he's ever endured. "I just wanted to be seen." In that moment, we grasp the true victory, not the public downfall of entitlement, but the reclamation of a young boy's dignity. There is no gloating in Tariq's gaze, only a serene confidence born from quiet endurance. He taught us that courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the stillness of standing firm when the world expects you to retreat. His triumph lies not in forcing an apology, but in compelling everyone, staff, guest, and even the most entitled heirs to confront their assumptions. In the days that follow, Salaria Resort feels the tremors of that afternoon's reckoning. Mandatory bias training replaces stale protocol briefings, and new policies enshrine guest dignity above hierarchy. Housekeeping teams and front desk staff share knowing glances, empowered to speak up when privilege oversteps. Monica, once paralyzed by fear, finds herself promoted to floor supervisor, a testament to the moral courage that helped turn the tide. Meanwhile, Camille Whitmore walks into a classroom that no longer bows to her name. Desks are rearranged so that no single student occupies the front without invitation. Whispered snickers fade into compassionate murmurs. Stripped of her inherited shield, Camille navigates a quieter path of reflection, her sharp edges softened by the absence of unearned authority. Observers marvel at how swiftly the gears of an institution can turn when one person refuses to look away. Now, we invite you to step into Tariq's shoes. What would you have done if every glance you received carried the weight of doubt? How far would you go to reclaim your rightful place when systems are designed to push you aside? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective matters. If Tariq's composure in the face of injustice inspired you, hit that like button. Pass this story along to someone who needs to see the power of dignity over disdain. And don't forget to subscribe for more narratives that challenge the status quo. We're building a community that refuses to let silence pass as consent. In our next chapter, we'll pull back the curtain on Carter Legacy Hotel's headquarters, revealing the corporate fallout from Amelia Carter's unflinching stand. From boardroom showdowns to policy rewrites, the shockwaves of that single moment at Salaria Resort still reverberate through executive offices. What happens when justice meets bureaucracy? How do companies adapt when the very foundation of their culture is upended? Stay tuned for more twists, more justice, and more voices like Tariq's that refuse to be silenced.